you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, just to give into the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. It is Wednesday, September 22nd. Right. Don't get too crazy now. Yesterday was the final day of summer. That's a wrap, and we're moving into fall. I don't know about you.
Bring on the pumpkin
Bring
spice.
on the pumpkin spice and everything nice.
Amen.
I'm a fall baby. Always did love fall, you know. And I love my apples. I like my apple pie. I love my apple cider, which I make from scratch. Love Laura's pumpkin pie, which she makes from scratch. I love pumpkin picking. It's pumpkin carving in this family is serious business, right?
Sure is.
I got Dremels, okay? I don't carve. I shave.
Oh, yes.
I am an artist in my own right. I can't draw worth a damn. I can't paint. I can't finger paint. I can't watercolor, but I can carve a damn pumpkin.
Sure can.
And I can carve crazy pumpkins. And I just can't wait for it. So I'm happy. I like the fall. And fall is usually election seasons. So it always works out pretty good for me. All right. Speaking of which, we got a lot to talk about today. We have interview a little bit later, candidate from Pennsylvania. That'll be fun. We have a lot of state polls that I think I wanted to go over, which would be interesting. One of which I went over in a live stream yesterday with locals. But then we put out the supplemental voter analysis for the state of Michigan. And if you're a locals member, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com, then you got that updated Michigan voter analysis modeling. Very interesting, yet a continued shift, right? Mm-hmm. From what was once a very Democratic-leaning Midwest state. D+6, sometimes better, to now clearly an R+ state, which Democrats need independence in order to win a statewide election. Speaking of which, with Whitmer's popularity waning, that may be increasingly difficult. Even though, you know what, I didn't give this to you, but remind me on locals, I'll do it. We profiled likely Biden and likely Trump voters. It's kind of funny because in like almost every state, it's dead on. Yet when we did the profiling in Michigan, it said Donald Trump's likely. Well, look, there are some unknowns, but the bottom line is the machine said Trump by 80,000, which was interesting because in other states, even states that Biden won pretty handily, they were really close. Minnesota, it was like Biden by like 7. So very, very, very close and spot on. Trump by 3 in Florida. Very, very close. North Carolina was Trump by 3.5. So that's one area where we did see a little bit of an overstatement for Donald Trump. But incredible. So it's interesting and we can talk about it, but we'll have to talk more about it on locals because they don't want anybody whining and crying and reporting us to YouTube for thinking for ourselves. All right. So anyway, we have that. But the general theme, I think, of my opening today is the world is really upside down. Prostitutes are now demanding respect from the Johns. Okay? I always find it funny when I watch these verified Twitter mediaites, biatch and complain about the White House not taking their questions, or, you got Fox whining down at the border. The Homeland Security Secretary is lying to us. DHS won't answer our questions. You have this guy over at CBS now complaining. Yesterday, Joe Biden and Boris Johnson had a joint presser. Boris Johnson took questions from the UK media, and then Biden just ignored them and walked away. This is funny to me, and I'm going to tell you why. I don't understand why they think they deserve any respect. Did you think, after you whored yourself, that the John was going to respect you? So, really. The pimp slaps you, the John buys you. Know your role. Because you have prostituted and whored yourself to a political party, you don't get respect. You don't deserve any respect.
You got your money, shut up and do what
you got your money, shut up and do what you were bought to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's your role. Don't get mad at us or the rest of the world or Joe Biden for treating you like the whore you are. It's you sold yourself. You prostituted yourself. And a perfect example of that is the Hunter Biden story. Perfect example. I have said this before. We're going to recap. 2016 did not teach these people the lesson of maybe we should listen to the grievances of those in the communities we hollowed out for internationalism. Maybe we should listen to the working class people who voted for Barack Obama twice and now reject us. They didn't learn any of that. They didn't listen to the Bernie Sanders voter who said, you know what? I'm voting for Donald Trump instead. No, they learned zero from that vote. When it came to actually listening to grievances, what they learned was we lost control of the flow of information. And that is really the problem. Don Smith always plays this clip by Mika Brzezinski, and it's perfect. It says it all. How they really hated Donald Trump's social media accounts because he was circumventing them. And she actually used the word filter. This is not passing through the filter of the media. It's our job to tell you what to think. It is our job to give you a story and tell you what to think of that story. To tell you what is true and what is not. That is the lesson they learned in 2016. That is why they came after us with a vengeance. Because we were an alternative to their approved flow of information. Not just us, but we were the only ones offering independent polling independent election analysis. And that was the sin. And in 16, they learned we can't allow Julian Assange to publish emails, especially not emails that we're in. Especially not emails that show Glenn Kessler is a hack, not a fact checker. Especially not emails that show Chuck Todd will sell a story for a couple tickets to a party. He'll sell a panel on Meet the Press every damn Sunday if you hook him up and give him young interns.
Preach it.
We certainly can't have Julian Assange publishing emails showing Jake Tapper's producers literally tell him to ask the questions the DNC wants him to ask to Republican candidates for president. And we certainly can't tell people the fix at the Washington Post by Greg Sargent is really just a DNC talking point. Whatever memo Glenn Sargent gets that day from the DNC is what you read in the Washington Post. You get caught and busted at Politico for writing up with whatever Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Hillary Clinton want you to write up. Fear not, you'll get a promotion to the New York Times as long as Julian Assange is not there to publish it and tell everybody. And Fox hoard themselves too. Everybody but Tucker Carlson.
Mm-hmm. We love you, Tucker.
Including some people who are on Team Trump. Absolutely hoard themselves as well. So it goes both ways. The difference and where the impact comes is that it's 98% whoring to Democrats. So even the other 2% who whore themselves to Republicans don't really make a dent. And we know that with the Hunter Biden story. On October 14th, the New York Post published an article, Smoking Gun Email, in the title, which they said showed conclusively that the first and foremost, that one was on Ukraine. The first story on October 14th was specifically regarding Ukraine and contradicted Joe Biden's claim that he never discussed Hunter Biden's business dealings and never was involved with it. And that was a lie. On October 15th, which was a more damning story, which came out and showed their ties to China. Mm-hmm. And the kickbacks that Joe Biden gets, 10% to the big guy. Hunter Biden's business partner comes out, Tony Bobulinski, validates the emails, which everybody knew were true, validates the emails, goes on Tucker Carlson, and tells everybody the Biden family is an international crime syndicate. Andy Stone, a Democratic hack who works for Facebook, worked with Democrats and the liberal media to silence the story on Facebook. Jack Dorsey, who has since apologized, also gave the go-ahead to make sure that nobody could read it on Twitter. They locked the New York Post out of their account for days. The New York Post. What kind of an impact did this have on the election? Without a doubt, it had an impact. In 2016, Laura and I were just talking about this, going over all polling data. Nationally and in 13 battleground states we polled. When we asked about awareness, are you aware of recent reports surrounding Hillary Clinton's emails and WikiLeaks? 90+%, often more, depending on the state, were aware of that story. In 2020, what was the number? And we went back and took a look just because we saw a tweet from Don Jr. And instead of going on the browser, I'm going to pull it up here just to make sure I get specifics. You're welcome.
By the way, we
I know
never
Laura hates
set the setting to bring back the color to your face.
Oh, yeah, I got more color than this, folks. I got more color. All right, well, I'll fix it. All right, in 2020, we went back and looked at 4 battleground states. In Arizona, we did not ask this question because we replaced it, if you remember, with support for a border wall, which was overwhelming. Arizona audit due out Friday. All right. Minnesota. Actually, let's go in alphabetical order, shall we? Michigan. And the question was, are you aware of recent news reports surrounding Hunter Biden's laptop, that was later. In the beginning, it was news reports surrounding Hunter Biden's business dealings and the role his father may have played in it, etc., with a prompt and everything. Michigan, 70.4%. So 30% of the electorate had never heard of it. Minnesota, 72.5%. So more than one in four never heard it. Pennsylvania, again, more than 1 in 4, 74.4%. And in Wisconsin, 75.5% heard about it, obviously. Another 24.5% did not. Compared to 2016, when 90% or more routinely told us they were aware of the stories surrounding Hillary Clinton's emails and WikiLeaks. Why did that matter? And why did it matter with the Hunter Biden story and the Joe Biden story? I'll tell you why. Many, many people who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 didn't like him. But they were absolutely tired of the corruption. They were tired of the family crime syndicates. The Bushes, the Clintons, the Obamas, the this, the that. A bunch of poor, mediocre, broke jokes who couldn't earn a damn dollar on their own if it wasn't for their last name. They come into politics broke as a joke, eating, like the Obamas, tuna fish every day, and come out millionaires with mansions in Martha's Vineyard.
With caviar on their plate.
Yep, caviar and a cracker. Americans were sick and tired of it. So they gave a guy with no political experience who was a successful businessman a shot at doing it. The kind of voter, we're talking about 60,000 votes between a handful of states. The kind of voter that is persuadable. This kind of crap absolutely means a lot to them. And you know the media knew that because that is why they decided to cover it up. That is why big tech and big media, along with one political party, decided to truly collude, to collaborate, to work together, to hide the truth from you. Because they knew from 2016, this kind of story bothers people. Who? What kind of people? Swingy people. Persuadable people. Less than partisan people. They were not going to replace Donald Trump with another crook. So instead of doing their damn jobs, they became crooks themselves. And they hid what was very clearly criminal activity from the American people. We already knew that these emails and this story was legitimate. Even the laptop itself that was at the repair station, it doesn't matter, it comes from Rudy Giuliani. There was a paper trail. There was a hard drive that Jack Posobiec was looking at every day, offering it to Jake Tapper. He's tweeting about it right now, or he was yesterday. They chose not to look at it themselves. They wanted plausible deniability. The FBI knew it was real. And the lying piece of crap crooks at the intelligence agencies also knew that they were lying, but that didn't stop. A headline from Natasha Bertrand may sound familiar to you. She's a repeat offender. We just spoke about her when the indictment with Sussman came out. She is the go-to hack, the asset for the administrative state. A young, naive, but ambitious idiot twit who will take anything they say at face value in order for, if it will result in professional ambition, professional advancement. Hunter Biden laptop is Russia disinformation. Dozens of intelligence agencies say. Dozens of intelligence officials say. But in fact, if you read the letter, they didn't say that. What did they really say, Laura? In the letter, it really said, we don't know if it's authentic or not. But in our experience, this looks like Russian disinformation. And if we're right, we think it's very important that the American people know before they vote. Because we wouldn't want, oh God forbid, we wouldn't want misinformation to impact an election. Wink, wink, like Russia collusion, which Natasha Bertrand also repeatedly pushed. Fake conspiracy theory that was drummed up by a political party and crooked FBI and intelligence agents. Crooks collaborating to push lies and conspiracy theory to defraud you, ladies and gentlemen. To defraud you. They literally turn the dark arts that they use in third world countries to depose regimes they don't support. They use those tools against you, the public, because they don't protect anybody. That's not their role anymore. The FBI doesn't investigate jack. They didn't stop the Pulse nightclub. They didn't stop San Bernardino. They didn't stop the Texas shooter, even though Fort Hood, even though that's their job. Their job is to vet people with questionable backgrounds who want to join the military.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't get him. Nope.
Nope.
Nadal Hassan went right through their fingers. Slipped right through. Too busy climbing up telephone poles to stop people from gunning down American citizens trying to watch a country music show in Las Vegas. Too busy climbing up the telephone pole outside of Trump Tower to stop a psychopath everybody knew was nuts from gunning down children in Parkland. Why not? Couple dead kids will restrict the Second Amendment. It's a win-win for everybody. Except for their freaking families.
Or the Orlando club that got shot up.
That's the Pulse nightclub. There's another one.
Mm-hmm.
Warning signs all over the place. By the way, Terror Daddy standing behind Hillary Clinton in 2016. Yet another story they covered up. And now they want respect? Now they did all of that for them. They hoard themselves like that. This isn't even a show where I could, if I was going to use the prostitute analogy, I can't even describe the acts that are equivalent to that kind of prostitution of yourself.
Yeah, you did some dirty stuff.
You a dirty girl.
Dirty.
Or boy. And you're definitely not going to be respected afterward. It's ridiculous to me that they would even complain about it now. And by the way, this is becoming a pattern. These Democratic operatives like Andy and Natasha posing as professionals in their respective careers when it comes to Andy Stone, posing as some, impartial executive at Facebook. Natasha Bertrand posing as some journalist, impartial journalist at The Atlantic, or was Politico than The Atlantic. Now CNN, by the way. You landed right where you needed to be, Natasha. Maggie Haberman, a poser. She is posing as an impartial journalist when she just took leaks that she probably herself, she had to have known the leaks from Adam Schiff, which we all know was your source, Maggie, were fake leaks, publishing them in the New York Times like it's gold, gospel. And you got to give it to this guy his name is Ben Schreckinger, if I get it right. You got to hand it to this guy, a young journalist at Politico, now coming out with a book where he is confirming what we all knew to be true, what the media tried to lie or omit to a large sector of the American electorate, which is that the Biden family is completely corrupt. Those emails are 100% legitimate. They're not Russian disinformation. Anybody who looked into this never questioned the veracity of those emails. They tried this, though, in 16, but the difference was, again, they did not have control of the flow of information. Big tech specifically was not yet on the prostitute train with the journalists. So independent media people, independent journalists, alternative media were still able to get out the real information, while Chris Cuomo, brother of Democide Governor Andrew Cuomo, was telling viewers on CNN that you're not allowed to read WikiLeaks. It's illegal, in fact. So you need to wait for us to tell you what's in them. While he was doing that, alternative media was still able to get the information to the electorate. And 90+% in any given battleground state and nationally was aware of those stories. They were aware of the content of Hillary Clinton's Goldman Sachs and worse Brazilian bank speeches. They were aware of the incestuous relationship with half of the fake news stories between the media and the Democratic Party. They were aware that Bernie Sanders was robbed out of the primary because the DNC completely rigged it and coronated Hillary Clinton. They were aware of it all. And worse, they were aware, they were aware of more than that. Julian Assange's original sin, the final straw that broke the camel's back, was 16. His original sin was telling you how badly the Lindsey Grahams and the John McCains and the State Departments and the Defense Departments, Republicans and Democrats alike, were lying to the American people about the war on terror. We're lying to the American people about the innocents that we have murdered on accident or intentionally. Lying to the American people about the progress we were making in these third world dumps that we wasted trillions of dollars on. While their friends got rich exporting heroin and addicting half the freaking Midwest. And now they want respect. Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. All right, listen. There's always an audio thing when I bring on a guest, so bear with me. But we're going to bring on a guest soon. He's running Pennsylvania, Congressional District. A little bit later on, we're going to go over some state-level polling in multiple states. I'll give you an update on what is going on in Georgia. Tell you right off the bat with Georgia, I am stunned at the majority that wants a forensic audit. I am completely stunned. We are down to, we've oversampled many groups, and we're still down to that core male, central and southern coast, chipping away at it little by little. I can't believe how many Democrats think Joe Biden did not win the state of Georgia. You won't believe how many Democrats disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing in the state of Georgia. You won't believe how many Democrats think that election officials counted ballots where the signatures did not match. You will not believe how many do not want to count ballots that arrive after Election Day. And on and on. You will not believe how many Democrats want a ban on ballot harvesting. Want a ban on drop boxes. Republicans are complete cowards. Wait until you see the majorities on these proposals. And as much as the media over 8 months now has done everything they could to hide any evidence of irregularity from you the way they hid the Hunter Biden story from you. No matter how much they continue to dig in, voters in Georgia are not buying it. The voters in Georgia do not believe that Joe Biden is the legitimate winner of the state of Georgia.
Rightfully so. I'm sorry, did I say something?
You coughed. I think you had a little tickle in your throat.
Yeah, a little tickle.
Nobody's buying it. Nobody is buying it. With some very interesting results of the generic ballot, very interesting results of Herschel Walker's race in the U.S. Senate against Raphael Warnock, very interesting results in the primary for governor, by the way. Much different than I thought it was going to be. Overall, the result that I thought we were going to see, the margin, however, is different than what I expected. And the statewide generic ballot, which I just referenced briefly, Democrats may be in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. And when you look at that and you take it hand in hand with I did see another poll in the state of New Jersey, which was conducted by somebody else. And interestingly, it jives. So we'll take a look at what that poll says. We'll also take a look at the voter analysis model in the state of New Jersey so we can see how closely they may resemble the actual electorate. I'll give you a little bit of hint before I bring on David, which I'm going to do right now. It's good. You know, they're very, very representative. Both of those polls. So if they're right, very interesting. And even in New Jersey, Joe Biden is not doing good. So yeah, we'll talk about it in a little bit. But for right now, I'm going to bring on our guest, okay? And he's running in Pennsylvania's 5th Congressional District. David, welcome to Inside the Numbers, my friend. I'm glad you could join me. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, man, I got you loud and clear. Thanks for having me on. Super excited to be here with you guys today.
Yeah, I was checking out, and you know what? Laura always gets mad when I do this. But I was checking out, getting ready for the interview, and I was looking at some of the things you were tweeting. And it's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about, all right? Because it does seem like all of these major proposals, they're hanging by a thread. You have Sinema in the Senate, and you have Joe Manchin in the Senate, who can kill these things if they wanted to. But in the House, where you're running, you know, it's very different. Republicans are getting steamrolled. That's something you did mention, though, in one of your tweets, which you know what? I'll read it verbatim here. Let me read it verbatim before I get into it. And then I'm going to ask you, you know, to basically tell everybody, you know, why you're running, because we have talked before. You and I have spoken before. And sure. I think this really sums up. It's big. All right. So House Democrats are pushing a $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill that was designed with no House Republican support, input, and is full of partisan priorities instead of real solutions for working Americans. Yet they don't want to assume the fiscal responsibility that goes along with it. Why? And you go on a thread, and I would tell people to go check that out. But why don't you go ahead first, introduce yourself, tell people why you're running. You and I have spoken before, but I want to give you the opportunity to say that, because I'm reading your thread, and I think it sums it up, you know. But go ahead, I'll let you in your own words.
Yeah, thanks again for having me, Rich. I really appreciate it. As someone who has been watching you for the past year and a half, just because of your data science expertise and your sort of alternative dive into the polling numbers and the way you break everything down at and I say this lovingly, but a math nerd level for those of us that aren't math. Really appreciate it, man. But yeah, look, I'm running. I'm a former naval officer, and I've seen what leadership looks like. I've seen what people who are united in the pursuit of what's best about this country can achieve. We can transcend our differences, and I've seen what real leadership looks like, and we're certainly not getting that in this country. We are ping-ponging from crisis to crisis, self-imposed crisis to self-imposed crisis. And, I truly do believe at some level we are on the precipice of fundamental changes to our country, to our symbols, to our institutions, to the things we hold dear. I lost a friend of mine, a unit mate of mine in Syria in 2016. He was the first American killed in Syria. And I remember being at his funeral in Arlington and standing in a half-mile long line to pay respects to his flag draped casket. And if there's one thing you will never forget in your life, it's a flag draped casket at Arlington Cemetery.
Oh, yeah.
Fast forward to the summer of 2020, and I'm watching that same flag get desecrated in the streets, and our politicians making our differences worse and more sharp instead of trying to work to solve them in the midst of a crisis. And real leaders don't make crises worse for political benefit. So I had to get off the sidelines, and I'm happy to be in the arena fighting for the average American, the working American, the folks that I commanded overseas.
Yeah, and David, part of also what you were saying in there is that we're going from one crisis to another. Constantly brinksmanship. It's just constant, one after and they are self-imposed. I mean, we don't need these crises, whether it's over the debt limit, whether it's the reconciliation bill, whether it's the border, whether it was the Afghanistan withdrawal. These are devils or demons of our own design. We have done this. I mean, this is not what previous generations, simple little things like passing a budget. This is not something that previous generations have had a problem with. We have a problem with leadership. It is mediocre. They're not informed. They have no courage. They're not courageous people, David. These are very mediocre, ideologically driven people or special interest driven. It's like one or the other. And you said it in the tweet. What do you mean when you said that the House Democrats really presenting a false choice here with this reconciliation? It's a perfect example.
Yeah, so absolutely. They're basically telling us we can't empower folks who need to be empowered, middle-class families, working-class families, unless we spend $3.5 trillion, build a bevy of new government programs, some of which they claim to be temporary, as we know. And I saw a member of Congress tweet the other day, the famous Reagan quote, there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program.
That's right.
So we absolutely know that, quite frankly, it's a false choice. Like I said, that we have not had meaningful exploration of, can we reform our schooling system to actually train the skills in demand in the labor market? Can we make trade more fair? Can we revitalize industries like in my sector, the shipbuilding sector, the steel sector? Those industries used to be the hallmarks of prosperity. My great grandfather worked in a steel mill. He raised 5 kids and he still had money left over. There are other things we can do to create jobs and do the sorts of things we need to do to help the middle class without building a whole new safety net and expanding the power of the federal government. But we haven't heard a single option from the House Democrats. And to me, that's just disingenuous, and it's not good leadership.
Yeah, and for the future, and look, Republicans, I would argue they're guilty of this too, but this kind of money that we're talking about now, and we are seeing the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, scream under Joe Biden. I mean, we're seeing increases we haven't seen in 4 decades. So there is inflationary pressure. A lot of this, they feel like economic consequences are imaginary or something. And the amount of money that they continue to spend is not like a level we've seen before, even during the war. Later after the Great Recession. This is a whole new level. There was one bill under Donald Trump right at the end of his term, which was a multi-trillion-dollar bill. It was historic in and of itself, the CARES Act. But then I think most people thought that it would slow down. And this is now at a point where this is crazy. And nobody feels like they're going to have to answer for this, right? So they just don't feel like there's going to be consequences.
That's absolutely it. And again, it's just, I keep going back to the point because I think it's key. It's a failure of leadership. There's billions of dollars still undispersed in the program designed to help those pay their rent. There's still billions of dollars we can be lending to small businesses in trouble, but instead they want to appropriate 3.5 trillion more. It just doesn't make any sense. Focus on governing. And it's funny because the Democrats love to talk about, how they're in power. Well, if you're in power, use power, govern well. Don't just pass the buck. That's the best phrase. Oh, well, we aren't going to pass the buck, but then all they've done is pass the buck from the very beginning. So it's depressing, but it is inspirational to me because it just makes me want to fight all that much harder for the folks in my district and for folks who are sick of leadership by a cultural and political elite that's completely and totally out of touch with the daily reality of the lives of most Americans.
Yeah, on that district, I'm curious what your, what your take is and what your message is to voters in your district. It's that part of the state for people who need a real quick recap. Chuck Schumer's favorite part of Pennsylvania basically said, for every working class, voter we lose in Western Pennsylvania, we gain 3 more in Delaware, I think he said, but generally goes for Southeastern Pennsylvania. The 5th district over there, Scanlon, won by a pretty large margin. Republicans are having a difficult time communicating with those voters. So what do you, I guess where I'm going with this, what do you think needs to be different to reach those voters in the 5th congressional district? What do you think needs to change?
Yeah, again, I think we just need to focus on the results of leadership as opposed to the rhetoric, right? I mean, there is no doubt that folks are less safe today than they were 2 years ago. There is no doubt they are less well off than they were 2 years ago. There is no doubt that our district is less well run than it was 2 years ago. And look, I'm a proud conservative, but I think at the end of the day, where we sometimes go wrong is we focus too much on the ideology, and we don't focus enough on the results and the leadership. And being a military guy, being a guy who's results focused, being a guy who worked with years for folks who didn't necessarily hold all the same beliefs I did, or have the sort of same ideology that I have, I was still able to accomplish the mission. And I think that's what we have to start doing. We also have to show that, our values are capable of empowering folks and lifting folks and doing all the same sorts of things that the Democrats are always talking about, but then they don't deliver on.
They don't do.
And I think to build the party back here, we're going to have to do that. It's going to have to be a total rejuvenation of our values, of our message. And to put it in perspective for you, Rich, the Republican Party controlled Delaware County, like at the county level, from 1865 to 2017. So it's not like things are gone, right? I mean, this is a very recent shift. And I think we need to be fighting in suburban districts like this. We need to show voters here we can deliver on our promises, we can make life better, and we can represent folks honorably and well.
Yeah, I think, a lot of we talk on the show a lot about immigration, migration, and education, and the impact those 3 things can have on demographics. But there are a lot of recent changes in some of these suburbs that I don't know what else to call it, because I don't think we've witnessed anything like this before. But in the Trump era, the media went on, and the Democratic Party went on this, what really can be characterized as a massive social desirability bias campaign, where they weren't really making any rational policy arguments. It was just this is the kind of person who supports Donald Trump. And these arguments of like shaming people, or they're very effective on people in suburbs like those, especially affluent and higher educated suburbs. They're more impactful there because it's like a social stigma. And I'm not saying it's true. It's not. They just kind of fabricated it out of thin air. But it was part of their strategy. I've actually read some of their memos after the 2016 election. Look, this is what we're going to do. If you support Donald Trump, you're a bad person. And we're going to target affluent people in suburbs, right? So this was recent. It's a recent thing, like you just noted. So, I guess what I'm saying is it can make a Republican candidate optimistic that those trends are not permanent, or they're not solid. They're not really driven by real political coalition shifting, or at least not a good part of that.
That's true.
It was driven by a social bias campaign.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and the approach I'm taking is, look, I am running a hyper localized campaign. I am out at every event. I'm trying to introduce voters to who I am as a person, right? So I'm Dave. my father died before I was born. I'm the son of a single mom. I'm a naval officer. I'm a guy who's going to work hard and be honest and put, your needs and practice servant leadership first. And at the end of the day, right, most voters realistically are not voting based on some super rational, detailed policy calculus where they're just ticking boxes off in their head, and whoever supports more of the issues they support, they vote for. Some folks are like that, but a lot of people are not. Yeah. Folks want to vote for leaders, people that inspire them, people that are honest, people that have character, people that are compelling. And to me, that's what we need to do as a party, and that's how you win back these districts, is showing your true character and that you're willing to actually work and get stuff done for people.
As a military guy, I got to ask you this. We just went past the 20-year anniversary of 9/11. You're someone who served, obviously, as well. After a lot of people, a lot of veterans that have contacted us or we've heard from, and I tried to address it, but I'm curious I want to get your take on it. What do you say to veterans who look at what Joe Biden did, and it's not just the withdrawal, it's how it was done, and then leaving the Taliban with all of the weapons, packing a bunch of irrelevant people in an airplane just for virtue signaling, while people who did help us were left behind. You know what I mean? And they have this feeling like, damn, what did I do this for, Dave? What would you say to them?
Well, look, I mean, the people I served with represent, in my opinion, the best of this country. And no matter what, they kept the country safe and they did their job. In the military, you do your duty, even if it's hard, even if you don't necessarily like it. And that's exactly what the folks who served in Afghanistan did. And I think there's a lot of honor in that. And they should be an example to the rest of American society as a paragon of what fulfilling your civic duty looks like. Now, our civic duty looks different for everyone, but all of you who went there, you did your civic duty, you did the job, you did what was asked of you, and you have everything to be proud of, because undoubtedly, we did degrade Al-Qaeda, we did achieve a lot, and we did keep America safe. There hasn't been a terrorist attack in the United States since September 11, 2001. Now, I am not for nation building. I'm not for forever wars. I'm not for committing American blood and treasure for decades and decades and decades and sending the sons and daughters of the working class to go over and die in deserts most people haven't heard of. But at the same time, we live in a very dangerous world, and it's becoming more dangerous, and we cannot disabuse ourselves of the fact that we are now more dangerous as a result of the way that evacuation from Afghanistan was carried out.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, part of we're rolling right along right on your Twitter feed, but that's good. We're looking at the Taliban. Joe Biden arms the Taliban, $85 billion, and apparently Democrats want to disarm the state of Israel. All right, so
they have a larger air force than a lot of our NATO partners now. They have more aircraft than a lot of our NATO partners.
They're stripping, after all of this, Dave. They're stripping $1 billion out of this bill for the Iron Dome. I mean, so the Democratic platform now is arm the Taliban and disarm the Jews. I mean, what was? I got to get your response to that. I can't even fathom it.
It is a gross undermining of a key ally force in the region, and ultimately the Iron Dome is a stabilizing force, right? So it protects innocent Israelis, and by protecting the innocent Israelis, it prevents the attacks that would take place on Palestine if the Israelis were not shooting those rockets down. So by defunding the Iron Dome, Democrats are actually destabilizing the sort of you can't call it a peace, but a sort of status quo that has resulted in less people dying in the Middle East. So again, the Democratic Party is being driven and directed by the far left progressive wing, which is anti-Israel. And I don't think anyone can argue otherwise at this point. Just look at the results, look at the evidence. It speaks for itself.
Yeah, I think some people aren't old enough. Some people are. And, I understand the argument that you don't want to spend money, foreign aid. You don't want to give it to anybody. There are some people who just don't want foreign aid to go to anyone. I just will say that, understand this. You take away that Iron Dome, and some of us remember when there wasn't an Iron Dome. And the next time the Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, let those rockets fly, and they land in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, they hit people. I mean, I don't think people understand this, man. They haven't been, or maybe they haven't been around old. They're not old enough to remember the cafes of body parts and the buses, and they just came out of nowhere. It was a routine event.
Yeah,
So the Iron Dome, no matter what you think about foreign aid, the Iron Dome is what you were just saying, Dave. It changed the dynamic in that region because it has been a stabilizing force. People know it's almost you better, if you're going to take the risk of launching that attack in Israel, it's a totally different calculation because now the dome's there. You're not guaranteed a strike. So
absolutely.
I just
Absolutely.
I can't imagine living in Israel and going back to a pre-Iron Dome era. I just can't even imagine that. Those scenes and views are not out of my head. It hasn't been that long for me.
Certainly not. Certainly not. I mean, I remember, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade at the
Yeah.
heyday of the Intifada and then the horrible violence in Israel. I mean, I remember suicide bombers going off on buses and nightclubs. It seemed like every week. So we certainly do not want to return back to that environment.
Yeah, it did seem like every week. Yeah, so with that in mind. Well, go ahead, Laura. What you got?
Inquiring minds want to know.
Inquiring minds, hit me up. What do you got?
What did he do in the Navy? Like, what's his?
Oh yeah, I
background?
wasn't going to get into that for him, but he can answer that. What did you do in the Navy? Go ahead. Yeah, because you do have an impressive resume. You should tell people.
Yeah, so I graduated from the Naval Academy in 2012. Was lucky enough to get a scholarship to go overseas for grad school. Got a master's degree in economics from Cambridge University in the UK right after I graduated from the Navy, from the Naval Academy. Then I was an explosive ordnance disposal officer in the Navy for 7.5 years. I got out in August of 2019. So I was tasked with leading platoons of our special operators who defuse IEDs and bombs and other explosive threats on the battlefield. So I made two deployments, one to the Middle East and one to Somalia. That was my last deployment. Was based out of Mogadishu. Great deployment, and I got out in August of 2019.
Yeah,
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, and there's
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
And I got to tell you, as an EOD guy, I got to get your opinion on what happened in Kabul because you're right up my alley.
Oh my gosh.
I cannot imagine, Dave. I cannot imagine someone getting that close. First of all, if it was U.S. forces who were in charge of securing the perimeter and who were in charge of evacuations and policing, then that would not have happened because they would never have gotten that close to that checkpoint. So, what is your opinion on how these people? Did somebody let them in, or was the device, planted somewhere early? I mean, it had to be something like that because I don't think people really understand. If you go to an American checkpoint, it's arms up, don't move, arms up, pick your shirt up, turn around. I mean, there's just no way they could have done it without negligence, or they let them in.
So this is an issue that I could talk days and days and days about. The Afghanistan withdrawal. The way it was conducted is totally asinine and indicative of just the sort of leadership failure that completely characterizes this whole administration and this Congress. I want to start out by saying my opponent did not utter a single word of criticism about the Afghanistan withdrawal at all. And to me, that is not courageous leadership. You see what's going on. People are hanging onto the wheels of an airplane. It's total chaos. You can't even issue muted criticism or urge the Biden administration to keep our troops there longer to get everyone out or increase troop numbers or push the perimeter out at the airport. I think there's no excuse for it. But as far as your actual question, first of all, we should have never given up Kabul to the Taliban. And we had the opportunity to secure Kabul, and the president chose not to. And then we decided to restrict our evacuation to a 2 square mile mortar and IED magnet in the middle of a city full of 6 million people, which makes absolutely no sense. The perimeter should have been pushed out, and those checkpoints, if they were manned by U.S. personnel, could have prevented that suicide bomber. But unfortunately, we trusted the Taliban to secure the outer perimeter of the airport. Of course, a suicide bomber got through or was let through. We don't know how, but one can surmise that there's a pretty good probability that the suicide bomber was let through. And then the suicide bomber hid in what was a complete throng of people, hundreds of people outside that gate. I mean, if you saw the video and the pictures prior to the explosion, people were literally packed in like they were leaving an Eagles game, right?
Yep.
I mean, like no room to move. And again, that was just indicative of the complete chaotic withdrawal with little clairvoyant process or planning at all. Because as you're right, I mean, as you said before, you're right. At a U.S. checkpoint, you can't have 100 people loitering close together where you can't observe
No way.
Can't check them. You can't do that. Again, this is like day one, week one level security that was just totally
operating procedure, man.
Yeah. So, but again, I mean, we're seeing with the border, we're seeing with unrestrained inflation, we're seeing with all this stuff. It's like the most basic duties of governance are being ignored, and the non-elites and the average folks are the ones suffering, right? The 13 sons and daughters who died, they're just from average American families.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart, especially to see a couple of them were expecting children. Some had children already. I mean, it's just a gut punch. I think I said that on Twitter, but it's a gut punch. Absolutely.
One didn't even get to meet their child. Just born, was headed to go and see their child for the first time. And what your opponent said nothing. That's forget about policy disagreements. I mean, for the sake of those 13, you can't utter anything. You can't say, it doesn't even have to be that forcefully, critical, but an acknowledgement that because here's the thing, those lives didn't need to get snuffed out. It was a bad policy decision that led to their deaths, and they deserve, it doesn't matter what party you're in, they deserve to have somebody speak up on their behalf. And
undoubtedly.
And it doesn't, I cannot understand it. I just can't.
Well, she, so I'll say she offered thoughts and prayers, but I said thoughts and prayers don't keep you safe in a combat zone.
That's
the
right.
the ability to use force keeps you safe in a combat zone. Clairvoyant policy and good planning that takes into account contingencies keeps you safe in a war zone. And we didn't have that, and the Biden administration certainly did not provide our commanders on the ground the full latitude and bandwidth to do so. And like I said before, calling the administration out for that is not partisanship. That's a duty. At that point, it was a duty to call it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, I do want to just, basically give people a little rundown. You have I guess where I'm going with this is you the campaign itself, you guys are you're on a roll, so, I wanted to get your take on what it is you think you're doing that's maybe different from other Republican candidates in that area struggling to gain some traction. What do you think it is about your message that's resonating differently?
Yeah, I think it's a hyper localized message that's again focusing on the livelihoods of working folks and average folks, right? We are so dominated by national issues. We're so pulled in by these media narratives, and we're so beholden to these ridiculous sorts of conversations we have on social media that we forget that most people just want to pay their mortgage. They don't want to have to pay $100 to fill their gas tank up, right? I mean, these are the sorts of issues that used to be at the core of politics until we sort of stepped through this ridiculous warp, and now everything we do has to be filtered through the lens of 200 and something characters on Twitter. So getting out amongst people, being out at events, and showing people who I truly am is I think why we have a lot of momentum. We're on really good track with fundraising, which again, unfortunately, as I've come to find out quickly in this business, is extremely important. But we have a lot of momentum, and as I keep telling people, this is not about me being called Congressman Galluch. This is about me standing up for people like my mom, about advocating for the people who don't have an advocate, and for helping to build a movement based on the values and principles and ideals that I love. And we're super excited. And like I said before, I couldn't be happier to be in the arena and doing the deed.
Yeah, people, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. People, and I think that gets lost. It is true. Fundraising is absolutely a necessary evil in this game. But, as long as you got that message and you're still people see its authenticity really, and they see that it really is about them and their problems and trying to make their lives better. I think that goes a long way with American voters. It really doesn't matter what stripe, color, ideology. I think it goes a long way. Yeah, last question here, Dave, and I'll let you go. Okay, two. I got two more. Thank
Yeah,
you
no
for that.
worries.
Laura's like, oh, don't forget about the
No worries.
Republican
We'll take
Party.
as many as you want. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, and you know what? I can lead into that last question with this one, which is basically this is a fight in the Republican Party. You have this post 2020 internal war identity kind of crisis with the people who just want to keep going along to get along, and then you have which is why I had you on, this slew of candidates that I think are people we would not have been, blessed with if not for what happened in 2020. And really what I think it comes down to is that Republicans as an establishment, voters see them, their own base sees them as really just trying to manage a decline in a losing battle. And then you have this, other wing that wants to, I wouldn't say use power more, but they, what is the point of being in power if you're not going to use it to advance your way of life or your cause? And voters want that wing to fight instead of what we have seen from Republicans from years. Let's just face it. They roll over. They're good at it. I guess in that last question, everybody always wants to know with new candidates is whether or not they'd support Kevin McCarthy when they got there, or where they would end up when they got there. So if you were elected to Congress, what side would you fall down on? And then really though, before even getting into that, I guess where do you think the Republican Party needs to go moving forward? Which side do you think is really the way forward for the party to be effective? And then of course, you could just roll into the second one, which is when you get there, what kind of congressman would they expect you to be?
So, in my opinion, we need to be. Look, you're never going to have the total victory of one side or the other, right? We have to find a way to get along and to live with each other and to meld together a coalition. We've seen what the Democrats have been able to do by, they fight it out, but oftentimes they will let the arguments simmer until they actually get in power, and they'll sort things out, because if you don't win, none of the conversations matter. And I think that's an issue we have as a party. And I can say specifically here in my district, right, we are outnumbered by Democrats. So my mission is to unite as many Republicans behind me, establishment Republicans, non-establishment Republicans, however you want to label yourself, right? I think at the core, we all share, conservative ideals, conservative visions, and those sorts of things manifest themselves differently in the sorts of policies you care about, and, all of the other things that go into our vision of politics in the public square. But ultimately, I think when we assign labels to ourselves and say, hey, listen, I want to beat this side or that side, I think we're ultimately undermining our ability to win. And I'm not trying to give you a politician answer. I truly believe that, right? I think we have to find a way to live together effectively, to horse trade, and to make the sorts of compromises that you need to meld together a big coalition with a lot of ideas that can actually win consistently at the national scale, especially in Pennsylvania, which is, in my opinion, the most important state for the Republican Party moving forward.
Yeah, Pennsylvania's it.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania's it, folks. And I hate to tell everybody, but in 2020, Pennsylvania was it. I mean, people, were dancing around the bush. What do you think about it? I mean, of course, other states matter. I just felt very strongly that because of where the coalitions are right now, Pennsylvania will decide. And whichever way Pennsylvania falls, that's how we know this election will go. I think that's moving forward too.
Absolutely. And to be clear, my focus is on being the side that's on the side of folks like my mom, the single mom who worked hard, who pays her taxes, who doesn't have special access to politicians, who doesn't, get the right policy, who doesn't get to skirt the law, who doesn't get to accrue all the benefits of being part of the elite. That's who my allegiance is to. My allegiance isn't to a one man, one movement, one party. It's to the people, and it's to the Constitution, and it's to, my district. And I see it pretty simply.
So, so basically I hear what you're saying. I hear where you're coming from. Basically if you were to win and when you get there, I mean, you'll deal with it when you get there.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, right. I mean, that's.
I mean, look, a lot can change in 2 years, and
Sure.
and again, in my opinion, I'm focused on winning in this race and building the party back and doing what I need to do to help us at the state level in Pennsylvania. And trust me, we need the help.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. It really, I don't know how to, I don't even know if that's the best way to put it. It's just at this point, Republicans are at a critical juncture. They need to identify who they are to people. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No doubt.
Everywhere we poll, Dave, people, if we ask them which comes closer to your view, for instance, I love those questions. And we always go, between one that's a definitive Democratic position or a definitive Republican position, whatever you want to call it. It's amazing to me how many people do come down on the side of conservative values, but then don't vote for the Republican candidate. And to me, that makes no sense other than Republicans have really got to reintroduce themselves to the American people and say, look, this is what we stand for. Because I don't think that many Americans know it. I just don't think working Americans, whatever it may be, whatever socioeconomic status, I think that Republicans have done a pretty bad job over the last 20 years or so, saying this is who we are. And this is what you could expect from us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we saw, over the last 4 years, how many people are tired of the status quo with, trade deals. They're tired of the status quo with this college or bust mentality, which enriches a smaller and smaller elite and keeps everyone else treading water, right? They're tired of the status quo in which the sons and daughters of the middle class go fight forever wars for rich politicians on both sides. That's just completely unacceptable. And, those are the things that I will absolutely fight to eliminate.
Well, tell people where they can support you, Dave. I appreciate you coming. I'm glad we finally figured out a time to get you on. And we'd love to have you back. But tell people where they can, go and find out more about you.
Absolutely. Soon. Absolutely, yeah. So you'll see my website down there, www.galluchforcongress.com. Twitter is at Dave Galluch PA. Same on Instagram, Dave Galluch PA. And then you can find me on Facebook, Dave Galluch as well. Again, Rich, Laura, thank you for having me on. This was absolutely awesome. As a guy who, again, tunes in for all your polling, your data analysis, all that stuff, finally getting to be a guest on the show is something I value a lot. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, you're most welcome. We'd love to have you back. We really would. Thanks for coming on. And we're going to do that actually right after this break. We're going to talk about a little bit about Georgia, a little bit about Iowa, and even New Jersey. Georgia's looking pretty bad for the Team Biden right now. It's not looking so great. His approval just is falling everywhere, and all the things we just talked about. I think it's finally sinking into some people. I just didn't expect it to happen this early, Dave. What about you? And just to add your last thing.
I'm not surprised to see the approvals tanking. To me, it's just a natural consequence of people taking a look around and just using common sense and saying, is this the best we can expect? Right. I mean, for someone who campaigned on being an expert and being a trustworthy guy and keeping things on an even keel, we're about as seasick as we could possibly be.
Yep. That's great. That's a great way to put it. I was going to make a very similar, analogy after the break. I mean, this was supposed to be the guy who stopped the boat from rocking. And I think really what it comes down to is people are like, what the hell happened? This is not what we expected. And reality wins. Reality does win. Again, Dave, thanks for joining us. We'll have you back soon. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Rich. I appreciate it. Thank you, Laura.
All the best. All right, folks. That was David Galluch, Pennsylvania's 5th Congressional District. I love doing these interviews. I hope you guys are enjoying them. I got to tell you, that area of Pennsylvania. I guess political coalitions are funny like that. You take a little bit here, you get a little bit there. That's the way it works. But a lot of his area where the Democrat ran up the numbers is a recent development. I want to talk about crime in Philadelphia. Next time we bring him on, remind me to bring up crime. But yeah, basically, there's been a change over the last 4 years, 5 years, and I'm not sure in certain suburbs we can count on them to act like so many of the other burb areas, like Loudoun County, because I'm not sure demographically that makes sense for them to follow a Loudoun County kind of trajectory. Demographically, it doesn't make sense. Actually, it is different, and we'll just have to see going forward. But yeah, I'm glad Dave came on. Very impressive resume. Check him out. I'm going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, we're going to go over some polling. I'll give you an update on Georgia. I will also talk about some other ones, like I said before. I'll briefly go over Iowa. We did that on locals yesterday. It just jives with what we're going to talk about, so it's worth a mention. All right, you're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, People's Pundit. Follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit, on Getter at People's Pundit. And of course, if you like this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up on YouTube and hit that notification bell after you subscribe. That will let you know when we're going to go live. All right, be back in about 2 minutes and 40 seconds. 2:45.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, and we're back to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Go ahead and like the video if you like it. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to YouTube. Hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. And of course, the best way to find me, follow me, interact, learn about polls, help me build polls, get the results before anybody else. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right, let's check Georgia, shall we? I'll be looking at it for the first time since, well, I looked at it earlier before the show. But now that we are seeing Central and the Southern Coast fill in, we are now seeing, obviously, more conservative answers starting to round out. All right, so basically, no matter what happens here with the last few interviews we're going to do today before wrapping it up and packaging it and sending it on out, regardless of all of that, like I said in the beginning of the show, probably the most shocking result for me is the consensus on the fact that the state needs to do a full accounting of what happened in 2020. And despite the media's attempt to push these stories down, to discredit them, and to move people forward, the legitimacy of the Biden administration is in doubt. And they can cover for that as much as they want, but the fact of the matter is, even large percentages of Democrats believe that Joe Biden won the election illegitimately. All right, so my message, I guess, to media would be, take your heads out of your butts, because no matter the censorship, no matter the suppression, no matter the smears, people aren't buying it. They're not buying it. So give them what they want. If you're so damn confident that Joe Biden is a legitimate winner of the 2020 presidential election, then you should be in support of these efforts more than anybody, because you should want your guy to be viewed as legitimate. It makes no sense that the supposed loser, his supporters want the audit, a full audit, and the winner does not. In 2016, when Democrats were screaming about fraud and Putin and this and that, which had no evidence behind it, no affidavits, no video footage, no statistical analysis, no record-by-record analysis, nothing to support ridiculous allegations, they were still, these ideas, these accusations were still taken mainstream. And yet Trump supporters still said, fine, go ahead, do it. I double dare you, do it. And if you remember, the recount stopped when places like Michigan started to realize that the only thing this is going to do is increase Donald Trump's margin. Then they abandoned Jill Stein and they wanted to move on and moved on to Mueller. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It isn't working. And in fact, all I think you have succeeded in doing is discredit your own guy. That's what I think you've done. Secrecy is never the answer to crises of credibility. Sunshine is. Transparency. That is the answer. But you went another way. You went in another direction. You chose, again, denigration, smearing, and people aren't buying it, including many people who voted for your guy. Including many people who agree, supposedly, with you, with your viewpoint. So you should take some time, conduct a little bit of introspection, and just do it. When a legislature, orders an audit, and the court says that they are well within their scope of authority to do so, and you fail to comply with subpoenas, and you fail to comply with their lawful direction, you look bad. It makes it worse. To the point where, no matter what, I actually think at this point, on that question specifically, do you think election officials in Georgia and elsewhere counted only carefully matched signatures to mail-in votes, or do you think they turned a blind eye and counted mismatched signatures? I think we're going to get a higher number this time than we even did dating back to January and December. It's getting worse. It's not getting any better. Censorship isn't making it any better. I think this presidency has a serious crisis of legitimacy. The way their allies in corporate media have acted has made it worse. And that is why, specifically now with COVID, the one issue where he was doing well, now that that is collapsing and turning to a pile of crap around him, he is collapsing faster than any president I have ever seen in modern memory. And for all of those people who would say, point to Donald Trump's approval numbers, obviously, he was never really at 38% in Ohio, was he? You don't earn more than 10 million more votes because you're in the 30s. It's ridiculous. You don't become the first president in history to lose after increasing your vote because you're in the 30s. That's ridiculous. And anyone who is an honest election observer and has been for years would have to agree, or they're shilling for somebody. And to bury these concerns is hurting the country. It is hurting the country. Also in Georgia, there are some, I guess, what you could say, victories for election integrity in that state with that bill. But for the most part, I was very curious to see the results of some of these polls, some of these questions in this poll, because after, Jim Crow 2.0, I was curious to see if that impacted people's opinions at all. And the fact of the matter is, the voters of Georgia wanted a much more strict election integrity bill. And that includes big numbers of Democrats and overwhelming numbers of Republicans and independents. They don't want drop boxes anymore. They don't want some way to circumvent ballot harvest bans. They don't want late arriving ballots. They don't understand why you just can't count the damn ballots on election day. And as you know, if you watch the show and how you've seen prior poll results from that question, we're not talking about even knowing the margin for each candidate at that time. We're talking about similar laws like we've seen in Florida, Ohio, Iowa. In the minds of voters all over the state of Georgia, there is no good explanation for Fulton County finding or just accounting for 35,000 here, another 10,000 there, another 50,000 there. 48 hours, 72 hours, 96 hours later. There's just no good reason. You can't do it in other states. They didn't have a problem counting their votes. So why did the State Farm Arena? They don't know. Also, Brian Kemp, I don't know if there's another viable alternative for Republicans in that race or not. I'm telling you, Brian Kemp cannot win re-election. He is going to lose. He is going to be maybe, we'll see. It's going to be close. But he could end up with a lower approval rating than Joe Biden. It's either going to be slightly lower or slightly higher. And Joe Biden is not doing good in the Peach State. That includes in the Atlanta suburbs. So Republicans, you do this to yourselves. You did this to yourself. Brian Kemp is way ahead in the primary for the governorship. He is. But he's got a huge chunk of Republicans who will not vote for him. They won't. Herschel Walker has a much, much more solid lock on the Republican base. By the way, Herschel Walker has a more solid lock on the Republican base than Raphael Warnock has on the Democratic base. Raphael Warnock has much better support among his own base than Joe Biden does. Chew on that. The disapproval rate for Joe Biden among Democrats in Georgia will probably be in the teens. And among independents, it's bad. Bad. Probably going to end up somewhere around 38%. Maybe less. Considering how close Georgia is to the national average, I guess we could have expected his approval rating to be lower in Georgia than nationally. I'm just not sure it was going to be this bad. But then again, let's look at some other polls in some other states where it is not good. Okay? There has been a number of polls publicly and in the campaign space in New Jersey, for instance. We always have that race and the Virginia gubernatorial race off cycle, and they always get especially when it comes to first term, incumbent midterms, they always get a lot of attention. Virginia, I'm not sure if we can count on its pattern for many, many years, decades. Virginia has always voted against the party in power for the governor in the first term. So, for instance, Barack Obama wins in 2008. He becomes the first Democrat in decades to carry the state of Virginia. Yet the state of Virginia votes for Bob McDonnell by a huge margin. All right. Donald Trump wins, yet the state of Virginia votes for Ralph Northam by 8 points. All right. This race was not close with this pollster we're about to go over. It is the pollster for Jack Ciattarelli, I think. He's the Republican candidate in New Jersey. This is his pollster. Folks, where was it? In June, Governor Murphy had a 17-point lead in the campaign's polling. Governor Murphy had 47% of the vote compared to only 30% for Jack. All right. Then that was April. Then in June, that lead fell to 12 points, but Governor Murphy actually went up 2 points to 49%, and Jack just went up to 37%. Now, this latest poll, which is released a few days ago, but it was conducted September 13th to 16th, 600 likely New Jersey voters, plus or minus 4%, 95% confidence interval. Murphy fell. He's dipped now 4 points down to 45. So the lowest in this poll since they started to poll for this campaign. And Jack Ciattarelli, if I'm killing your name, sorry, is now up to 42. He gained another 5 points. All right, so looking at demographics here, all right, which they put out in the memo for the campaign. Republicans, 79% base support for their guy. 10% of Republicans will vote for Murphy. Democrats, 69% base support for their guy. 17% will vote for the Republican. 45 to 40 going to the Republican for unaffiliated independent voters, all right? They also did some issue testing here where if they heard both ads from both campaigns, the Democratic campaign, so New York and Philadelphia media markets, by the way, if you heard the campaign's ads for Republicans and you heard them also for the Democrats on Murphy's side, you're going for Jack Ciattarelli by 8 points, 48-40. If you, what's the opinion of both, by the way, is pretty heavily favoring the Republican, 57-35. If you only heard the Republican ads, then you're going for them by 11 points. All right, so Republicans by 11 points. All right, so pretty interesting here, looking at some of the other things. Governor Murphy on taxes, only 33% approve of the job he's done on taxes. 42% approve of the job Governor Murphy has done on job creation. 30% agree with the governor when he said that the goal of New Jersey should be to, quote, make New Jersey the California of the East Coast. Only 30% of New Jerseyans want New Jersey to be the California of the East Coast. President Biden's approval rating was 60% in February. It is now 47% in the state of New Jersey. He's plus 3. 47-44. Well, what about the demographics of the poll? Where is my trusty voter file? I got to reload it. Give me a second. If you don't mess with it for a while, you got to reload it. All right, let's get going. Where's New Jersey? There you are. Click on New Jersey. You guys know this drill. All right, analysis report. Let's run it. Refresh it. I'm giving you some basic demographics here. Partisanship. The poll is 27% Republican, 45% Democratic, and 28% unaffiliated. That really is right in the ballpark of what New Jersey is, all right? And if this thing would ever keep spinning, both Democrats and Republicans are slightly less than their representation in the poll, but that's because, affiliation is fluid, all right? But the bottom line is the spread is really, there's nothing wrong with the spread. Age groups, all of that look pretty good to me. 18 to 24 is 7%, 25 to 34 is 15%. That's basically spot on. 35 to 44, 15%, 45 to 54, 16%, 55 to 64, 20%, and 65 plus, 27%. It's 63% white, 14% African American, and 14% Hispanic Latino, 6% Asian Indian, 3% other or refused. Again, that's about right. In the voter file itself in New Jersey, Democrats are 39.2%, Republicans are 22.6%, unaffiliateds are just under 37%. So again, that's really beefing up party, but that's okay. That's all right, because when you ask about likelihood to vote as a pollster, especially this early, what you're going to find is independents, unaffiliated, third-party voters are going to be significantly less likely than either partisan to tell you they're certain to vote. So this is a likely voter model. He's putting a screen on it, and without a doubt, unaffiliated voters are going to shrink as an overall percentage. Excuse me, my throat's still giving me a little bit of issues. I'm fine. I'm not symptomatic. I'm not a super spreader, but you know, it does tear your throat up. All right. Did he give gender weights? He did. 48-52. That's New Jersey. Nailed it. That is New Jersey. New Jersey's 50.9 female, 47.7 male. And yes, there are blanks on a voter file. There are. Which many people always ask me, how the hell could that be? Well, it's just the way it is. Especially in today's day and age. Don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. You know what I mean? Live interviews, that's how this was conducted, and it was conducted by, it was sourced by a voter file, and I think it's the same voter files we use, but I'm not going to give out the vendor. You guys know who the vendor is if you watch the show. All right, Tony Fabrizio, they mention in this whatever you want to call it, memorandum for the campaign. Many of the data points above match the recently released public poll conducted by Tony Fabrizio, specifically the fact that the race is a statistical tie, and that Jack Citarelli leads Governor Murphy among unaffiliated voters. In addition, note our 9-point advantage among voters who have seen or heard our campaign ads, most notably Governor Murphy, in his own words, telling New Jerseyans that, quote, if tax rate is your issue, we're probably not your state. Let me tell you something about New Jersey, in which I lived for many years. Me. Voice is killing me. The state is essentially, and you know what, I can do a voter analysis and put it on for locals, for you people, for my locals community. New Jersey is a state that is completely red, with the exception of a tiny blue dot in the north and a tiny blue dot in the south. But because those counties are overwhelmingly Democratic and are very high population areas, that is what makes New Jersey a blue state. But it is absolutely winnable at the gubernatorial level, especially when Democrats overreach. They have a very long history because they do dominate the state. In New Jersey, there's a very long history of Democrats that aren't really solidly Democrat, and they will abandon a Democratic candidate if they're screwing up really, really bad. Jim McGreevey, John Corzine, all right? And we've seen Governor Whitmer's and Governor Christie's. I'm telling you, I remember when Corzine was governor, Gary Lonigan was a candidate. Chris Christie was like, when you think of him, whatever you think of him now, Chris Christie was the man. And I remember seeing him, and I was a finance guy back then still, and I remember seeing him and being like, remember this, Laura?
I remember those
We have
days.
to go to all these dinners and all these like events and all these big wigs and clank glasses with people. Pinky uppers, and man,
They made
Chris
us
Christie
laugh.
was a bull in a china shop, and everybody was like, I don't know about this guy.
I love him.
He's so brash. Laura and I were like, you don't know real New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
This is the guy. This is the guy. Because everybody they were like, do us a favor and give us your opinion. You know, give us your candidate. Like you pick stocks and like you pick candidates. To, tell us what you think. And I said, this is it, man. This is working class New Jersey all day. Chris Christie is it. He's Little League. He's Pop Warner. He's it. Monmouth County is going to love this guy. Ocean County is going to love this guy. And he did. He edged out John Corzine by a little bit. And then we know from his deals, look, such BS, Bridgegate and all the rest of that crap. New Jersey politics is dirty. It's filthy. It's corrupt. It's one of the most corrupt states in the country. You can't get a liquor license unless you stuff someone's pocket, right? Let's get real. You can't pour concrete unless you stuff somebody's pocket. You can't buy rebar unless you stuff somebody's pocket. You can't get a zoning permit unless you stuff somebody's pocket. The unions are all crooked and corrupt. The mob owns everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the only time that Democrats thought they were going to be wise and try to kick out the mob, they destroyed Ocean Grove, Asbury Park, and now Atlantic City. Should have given it back to the damn mob. It was a well-oiled machine.
And they kept it beautiful.
Yeah. Now it's a hood in many of these places, Asbury, Ocean Grove. Yeah, you can't walk down that boardwalk anymore. You walk down the board, the only one walking down that damn boardwalk is someone looking for a bundle of heroin. That's it. It's a dump now. It's a total hole. But yet, it is still dirty, and it is still very corrupt with many of the same people who just play musical chairs. So this idea, like Chris Christie should have been like prosecuted or even thrown out of office for Bridgegate is ridiculous. Even if it's true. Even if it was, I know. But even if it was true, that is nothing compared what they do to get political support in that state. Make up some story about an ambulance with a woman who had died in the ambulance. What a load of crap.
No, it was a guy. You remember the sister's the one who came out and said,
right.
Stop using
it was a guy, that's
my
right.
dead brother.
That's right.
She got mad.
But yeah, clogging up a toll road for political retribution, that's nothing in New Jersey, folks. That's nothing.
Have you ever driven in Jersey? Because if you
Holy crap.
it's
no,
always
but I mean,
clogged
but
and
I'm talking about the games
I know,
that these politicians will play. They'll take your liquor license. I've seen that. That is the number one weapon.
Yes.
Because every big family, they got restaurants, or they own like a wharf on the Brielle Yacht Club or something. All right, and right, like this is how it goes. What a load of crap. A health inspector will all of a sudden walk in and give you a violation. Some state EPA guy will come in and say there's too many chemicals in your storage area or something. This is the biggest load of junk. Anyway, I digress. The bottom line is I do believe this poll because Murphy is pissing a lot of people off. And the bottom line is he never was really a particularly popular guy. He's no Jim McGreevey, who also collapsed. If you guys remember who Jim McGreevey was, I don't want to get into it because now it's different. But look, you're a married man. I don't care who you go to bed with, but if you're a married man and you're pretending to be Mr. Family Man, don't end up in hotel rooms with boys. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. But again, he was popular. There was talk Jim McGreevey could be the next Democratic nominee for president. And yet he collapsed, which ended up in Republicans making gains in that state. But you have tiny little areas in the state, guys, that are Democratic in the north, and tiny little areas in the state that are Democratic in the south. Republicans held Van Drew's seat. There are swing areas, in New Jersey, 5, 7. There are swingy districts, but the bottom line is that area is pretty Republican. You have, the huge numbers actually for Trump in some of these areas. You just would never know it because the very first fraud I ever witnessed in a presidential election was in the state of New Jersey. It wasn't even a particularly competitive state at that time in that year. But speaking of Asbury Park, they were handing out Lucy's to people in the ghetto. Lucy, I'll define it.
Thank you.
But they were basically busing people from back and forth from the hood to vote in the names of their family members and other people. And in exchange, they got loosies, which is like a loose Newport. It's not a whole pack of cigarettes. It's like a loosie is a cigarette. A couple loosies, 2 or 3. Give me 2 or 3 loosies, and I'll go vote in my cousin's name. That was the very first time I ever witnessed like a fraud operation, and it was the Gore campaign. Because I'm going to tell you how old. I'm not going to date myself. I'm about 40 years old. All right, and that's what they were doing. Even though New Jersey was not really a competitive state. Now, the Bush campaign did think they could win New Jersey in 2004, which is kind of funny. But they thought because of 9/11, they understood New York is New York and it's much more blue. But there were a lot of suburbs in New Jersey, and Laura and I both know we were impacted by this. A lot of suburbs in Jersey where I gotta put this. Fathers did not come home. Cousins did not come home. Family members did not come home. Others came home and were severely distraught over what they saw that day. So George Bush thought he had earned some goodwill and I'll tell you what, guys, if he didn't invade Iraq, he may have been competitive in that state in 2004. But there was a real big blowback to the Iraq War in the state of New Jersey. I didn't even go. I joined up after 9/11, and I wanted to, for me and a lot of others like me, 9/11 was really about Afghanistan. And even when I was no Vietnam experience or anything, but even when I came back, and Laura will tell you, people were like, why are you in Iraq? Like, I don't know, and I wasn't in Iraq, but there were a lot of people who were, there was a very big anti-Iraq war movement in New Jersey. George Bush listened to George Tenet, took out the trash in Afghanistan, and went home. New Jersey may have been another story. Because I did understand Karl Rove's point of view, and why he thought they had a chance. But the fact of the matter is, they lost that goodwill by overreaching. All right? So, let me, while I do this, let me give you a little bit better.
You said that Georgia, his disapproval was in the teens. I mean, his approval was. You misspoke.
What did I say?
Something like
Biden's approval or Kemp's approval?
Biden's approval.
Oh, among Democrats.
Yeah.
His disapproval will be in the teens. You know what I'm saying?
So
among Democrats, his disapproval rating is going to actually be, it was higher than I expected. I'll tell you, Democrats, look at Ann Seltzer's poll in Iowa. We went over yesterday. Even in Iowa, where he's at 30% or 31%, right? 30 or 32 maybe. Democrats are still, clinging to this guy. I mean, 65% approved of the job he did in Afghanistan, for crying out loud. So I was a little bit shocked to see it. Look, guys, in the approval ratings right now, it's Republicans, certain metro Republicans, and independents. That's where the movement's coming. Democrats did tick up a little bit, and somebody on Twitter was like, yeah, right, because I think disapproval in our last national poll was like 11% or 12%. It's true. It ticked up, but for the most part, if you go back and look at our polling, Democrats have been still holding ground.
No,
so I'm a little bit.
The overall rating.
No,
so that's
no.
why I'm just having you clarify.
You wish.
Yeah. There's a cool question.
But let me just finish. That's some of the problem with Georgia is that he's really seems to have slipped more than in most areas. Which is interesting, very interesting. I don't know why this dang database is doing what it's doing, but I was trying to get you guys a picture of New Jersey. I'll do New Jersey. Someone had asked me before, I think it was when we did New York, and someone asked me, hey, can we get a voter analysis in New Jersey? And we can. And I'll put it up on locals a little bit later. All right, but just remember, somebody, I wish I could hat tip somebody, but I'm not thinking of it right now. But I will hat tip who gave me this memo to the to Jack's campaign. I just put it into the comment section in locals, in the live chat in locals. That's yeah, I just put it in the live chat. That is the poll for the Republican campaign. And like I said, it's important to know in April, the Republican was trailing by 17 points. In June, the Republican was trailing by 12 points. So when this is a statistical tie, it's apples to apples here. And demographically, the poll looks good. There doesn't seem to be anything crazy. That's New Jersey. There are more partisans, but again, it's a likely voter model he's implementing right now. And without a doubt, partisans are much more likely to say they're certain to vote. However your likely voter is structured, they're much more likely to say they're certain to vote than unaffiliated. So while unaffiliates may be 38% of the electorate, or 35, whatever it may be, it's all right if you have a likely voter screen to reduce their representation, because maybe only 55% of them are saying, yes, I'm certain to vote. But 80% of both parties are saying they're certain to vote. So that means when you're doing your likely voter model, the partisans are going to increase their share more than they would be in the entire voter file. I hope that makes sense. But that's perfectly normal, is my point.
So, really quick
All right,
question.
hit me. Yeah, give me the question.
I'll give my answer, and Rich will give you the more complicated answer.
Go ahead.
Lamb Crow wants to know, what made it shift from Republican for president in the days of Nixon and Reagan to always Democrat, starting with Bill Clinton? So
New Jersey?
I think as a whole.
Okay, he's talking about New Jersey.
Was he?
Yeah, got it. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying.
Because it was a Republican state.
Yes.
It was. Go ahead, though.
But I'm saying when a area is thriving, they no longer require a Republican to fix everything and run it like a smooth machine. When everything is great, you don't need, to worry about the little stuff anymore. And then you elect a Democrat that destroys it, and then you want the Republican to fix it.
It was, that's, a good superficial take on it. It is. But it's New Jersey, very significant immigration from liberal Latino areas that settled. And if you know the names and the players behind New Jersey politics, that's why Bob Menendez almost lost, because the Hispanic community had abandoned him for a minute, and Huggy Bear almost beat him. In the end, a very powerful guy who basically controls the Hispanic vote in northern Jersey said, all right, back him. Mm-hmm. And that was it. Chris Christie had an unspoken agreement with that guy. Listen, when it comes to, we talk about this with urban politics all the time, Christie got it. That man would walk into any ghetto. He
True
would
story.
walk into any ghetto and be like, yo, what's going on, my brother? What can I do to make your life better?
My from another
loved
mother.
it. He was like, that is what you need to do.
That's Christie all day.
That it is, man.
But he wasn't putting on a facade.
No, he was real. He was totally serious. Yes.
The ghettos.
He was totally serious, Laura. And by the way, Bridgegate, they fabricated because they knew he was going to destroy Hillary Clinton. If he ran for president, he was going to annihilate her. Because not only was he probably going to take New Jersey, which is a lot of votes, he was going to be a problem in the Midwest with that working class attitude. In any event, so they fabricated that because they didn't expect somebody like Donald Trump to come along and take that lane, which he did. And but getting back to that point, listen, in New Jersey, I can tell you, just even as my experience, immigration was a big deal. A very, very big deal. And over time, we saw that come to fruition. And a lot of the exodus, from the Italians, Irish, Polish, they became Republican, moved to areas like I was talking about before, Atlantic, Monmouth, Ocean, Mercer even. These areas got encroached by others who were leaving, like Bedford-Stuyvesant in New York, and the boroughs coming to like Bergen or Essex or whatever. And then on top of that, if you were in my generation, you understood the Trump voter for sure and what they meant. Because like the 7-Eleven, later the Wawas, the parking lots were filled in the morning with a single Wawa or a single 7-Eleven could have 100 Mexican immigrants sitting in the parking lot, right? At least a single one, guys, all over town. And believe me, there were a lot of Wawas and 7-Elevens.
You could spit and hit a Wawa.
You could spit and hit a Wawa, right?
In 4 different directions.
So eventually, over time, in the 90s, that was very bad. And in fact, Democratic white working class voters who voted for Bill Clinton, who liked Bill Clinton in Monmouth County, in Ocean County, these areas that are now Republican, they liked Bill Clinton. They thought he was cool because the economy was raging. But then the illegal immigration really started to mess up neighborhoods and really started to take their jobs, and they were just overrun. I mean, there's just no way to put it. They were overrun. And then that community began voting 80-20 Democrat. It started ridiculous margins. And black voters have increased their share of the vote too in New Jersey, and they're extremely liberal. They're not even liberal. They vote liberal. It's a really sad machine. African American politics in New Jersey is an oppressive, sad machine that exploits the downtrodden. And the only one who was effective in breaking that for a short cycle was Chris Christie. He won like 22% of the black vote or something. I would have to go back and look, but it was enormous. And he won the Hispanic vote. He didn't win a good share of it. He won it. So,
and during his time, he did great things.
He did good things for him. He didn't.
And stopping doctor shopping. Because
so he still kept in touch with like white suburbia. You know, many people had like family members. The doctor shopping for opiates was just totally out of control. The system didn't work. New Jersey was supposed to have this system where the DEA number from a doctor would go into the system, and you know, it didn't matter if you went to Walgreens or CVS, they would still be able to see each other. You couldn't back then. Yeah. So people would like run, well, I got this prescription of Blues or Roxy's or Oxycontin filled at a CVS from this doctor. I'm going to go to Walgreens because I got a prescription for Percocet filled at that doctor. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to go to Newark and grab 2 bundles. Cory Booker, by the way, while we're at it, I know I'm running out of time. Cory Booker let heroin come into Newark.
Sure did.
I couldn't believe with all the dirt everybody had on Cory Booker that he had the audacity to run for president.
Amen.
When he had arrangements with dealers who could just walk up to any camera on 60 Minutes and tell their story. I can't believe he had the audacity. The audacity. That is how you know how corrupt the media is. That somebody as dirty as Cory Booker would feel confident enough to run for president and not worry whether 60 Minutes would give 5 minutes to the kingpin in a certain neighborhood to tell his story. The ports in Newark were completely corrupt. The workers were helpless to do anything. They were so stoked when they were so stoked when Donald Trump won, and he gave them all these tools to inspect like the stuff that would come through the port of Newark and even Newark Airport. What was the name of that machine we were looking at? And it's like, it was awesome. Donald Trump gave Customs and Border these
the
tools.
drug reader machine.
Yeah, man, it's a drug reader.
It's like an atlas for every drug.
Yes, it's got a database of the chemical compounds of drugs. And Cory Booker never cared. He never cared. You know what? Ship cocaine in with the mail. Ship heroin in with the mail. Whatever. Put it in between the sheets of cardboard. I'll tell people not to look through it. I'll tell people not to inspect it. And even if they do, they have no way of identifying the substance. He was a dirty piece of crap. Anyway, Donald Trump gave Customs and Border this tool, and it was an upgraded version of something they had before this one actually worked. And you basically just take the adapter If you find in a cardboard box that's coming in through Newark Airport, you cut through the cardboard, let's say white powder comes out, and the agent doesn't know what it is, suspects it's drugs, and they're packaging and trafficking drugs in some package that's coming through. This thing, you just take the adapter, you stick it into the powder, and it reads the chemical compound of what it is, and it will come back within how quick? It's like 20 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, boom.
It's
This is
real time.
diacetylmorphine. Whoa, it's heroin. You know what I mean?
It's like-
It was so cool. These guys were like, yeah, President Trump, because he loved him because he got all of these cool toys, probes, right? So like, on the shipments of like BMWs that would come through, BMWs, and you, instead of like ripping apart a single car and hoping you hit pay dirt or trying to take apart a manifold to see if there's any drugs coming in through these cars, these things were like, he gave them these probes. And they're like little cameras, and they have like little screen, and they can move the camera in through the car. It's crazy. So they could like inspect the valves or something. It's nuts.
You remember how much cocaine was in that?
Do you remember that one car?
That was
Holy
insane.
guys! It went through like where the pistons are, all the way up through the air intake. It was
Everywhere.
nuts. There were bags of cocaine everywhere,
Under the floor of the
and that would have
car.
got in.
It
by the
would,
way,
because you won't-
under Mayor Booker.
Mhm.
That would have passed right through into the hands of the what we always called the Booker approved dealer. So you're right. Cory Booker didn't allow anyone to sell heroin on his street. Just a few people that he thought he could work with.
True story.
He's a crook. Mr. Jump into the remember the lie about the burning building? You remember that fabricated story?
Mhm.
He went in and saved. But what a load of crap. For every one person Cory Booker saved in a burning building, 20,000 others stuck a needle in their arm and died. Disgusting, disgrace. I mean, it's the epitome of bad government. And then the epitome of corrupt media. Because anybody like him, feeling comfortable enough to say, you know what, damn it, without a single accomplishment and all of the dirt that I have on me, staining me, all of the skeletons in my closet, I'm going to run for president. Because I know, especially being a black man, damn right I said it, they're not going to come after me like they'd come after a Republican.
And
I'm a
he was
black
right.
I'm a
Okay.
black Democrat.
He didn't
No
get in
one's going to
trouble.
talk about my heroin operation.
He didn't get in trouble. He didn't get arrested.
Those poor police, man, in that city.
They were fighting a serious
A
fight.
losing battle.
Yeah.
You don't have the mayor behind you. He's too busy being a crook with the guys you're trying to fight. All for what? How much money they got back then to go out and risk their lives. The jump out boys. By the way, you can't even blame them for going. Unfortunately, many of them couldn't resist the temptation. Well, why the hell would you? If at City Hall is corrupt, why the hell would you not be? Think about it. So instead of like arresting people, you just jump out of the van and steal their wad. Kick them in their head and tell them to get lost. Next time I may write you up. Next time I may hook you up.
Well, Booker was too busy in bathrooms trying to
I mean, it's something.
attack little boys.
Oh,
Yeah, I went
you
there.
know,
Little
he
piece
did.
of garbage.
He's also a day drinker.
Yeah,
We just keep going here. Look, he also drinks during the day a lot.
all the time.
That's the.
Are the rumors?
I don't want to
about-
hear anybody make
Well,
fun of Mayor Giuliani anymore.
ever.
Never
Uh,
again.
Are the rumors about Booker and Graham true? Perhaps.
Perhaps.
Who knows?
Who knows?
They're both.
I'll tell you, the heroin
Special.
operation that he allowed to flourish in that city
It's disgusting.
was absolutely disgusting. And it didn't just hurt the ghetto guys.
Yeah.
His filth and corruption bled into affluent suburban New Jersey.
Drugs doesn't care.
Because when you're
If
hooked,
you're
they don't care
black,
who you are.
you're white.
That's right.
They don't care if you're rich, you're poor, you're Catholic, Jewish.
That's right.
if you worship the
And
Quran,
Laura,
they don't care.
the pill problem was so bad in that state when he was presiding over cheap bundles of heroin on the street, of good heroin. The suburban kids were like, you know what? I'm not paying $50 for an oxy. I'm not paying $20 or whatever for a Roxy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go pay $5 for a bag of heroin. I'm gonna go buy I could buy a few tablets of pharmaceutical meds that got me hooked, or I could buy a bundle of heroin. I mean, and again, like I said, it really goes to show you how badly our system is corrupt. That I'm talking about the media, everybody. That somebody with no accomplishments and all of that dirt, all of those skeletons, like Cory Booker, would feel confident, just totally confident in running for president. Wow. Because I'll tell you what, had he won that nomination, I'd have gone back to the ghetto in Newark
and blew his
and tried to,
like no other.
and tried to get some of those people to come out and
we
talk.
would've gone.
They would have.
Yeah, they would have.
Oh, 60 Minutes too afraid of corners like that. Not me.
I'll walk right in there.
Walk right in
Like,
there.
Yeah, dog, come here.
Can we talk about
Let's
you
have
and
a
Mr. Chief
conversation.
of Staff? I'll put you in silhouette.
Uh-huh.
That's it.
We'll black you out. Change your
Put you in
voice.
silhouette. Change your voice. Tell the good people of the country. Tell the good voters of the United States about why you don't go to jail for being a heroin dealer in this city. All right, with that in mind, at some point today, guys, I'll put together New Jersey for you. We'll put it up. I was really hoping.
Also wants to know, can we try to touch on? I want to say it was Connecticut governor race.
Yeah. I was one at a time kind of thing. The Nutmeg State is very interesting when it comes to gubernatorial races.
Connecticut.
I will tell you that a lot of people think Bob was robbed in 2018. And that was a D+10 national mood. And yet Connecticut barely went for a Democratic governor. A lot of people think the Republican won that race. There was a lot of actual allegations made after that, which of course got swept under the rug. It's kind of funny though, Connecticut's a really good example of how, when I tell people all the time, don't focus only on inner cities when it comes to these irregularities, because there was one woman who admitted to it. That was 400 votes in rural Connecticut in a very small precinct, and she managed to cobble together 400 votes against Bob. So it's like, not only worth. It's not. Don't focus on one area. Don't let the media dupe you. They want you to focus only on inner cities so they can make it about race. And yes, of course, the inner city machine is the most corrupt. It is, but it's not alone. It is not alone. All right. So don't fall for that trap. All right. We'll talk soon about Connecticut, which, as you know, I think Republicans should make, along with Maine, a full-fledged effort. It's not going to be overnight, but you could absolutely put a couple red dots in the northeast of this country. You could, but they don't. And the Nutmeg State has a very long history of bipartisan gubernatorial elections. Bipartisan meaning, and it's not the best way to put it, they are a very swingy gubernatorial state. They can go for the Democrat by 20 points in the presidential election and then vote 5 points for a Republican governor. It has been tough for Malloy and others in the past. They sour on Democratic governors pretty quickly. It still is very hard for Republicans to win. But in the end, without a doubt, it is possible. It is very possible. Yeah, Bergen, guys, Essex, Bergen, for New Jersey, by the way, just to let you know, those areas are what, does Republicans in that state. But anyway, Hunterton on down is relatively Democratic. even in counties like Monmouth, it looks like there are more Democratic voters and you'll see in the voter file. Monmouth, Ocean, there's more Democrats technically than there are Republicans, but those areas vote Republican. Okay, so many areas have been represented by Chris Smith for many years. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
I do think Sussex on down. You could encase even Morris, by the way. You could encase Democrats in a corner of the state, but in order to win it, you got to be like Chris Christie. You got to do what he did. You have got to be willing to do what he did. And I mean, it's just what it is. It's being fearless. It's being fearless and looking at everybody like they're a New Jerseyan. You're from Jersey.
Amen.
We're all from Jersey. He just had it. And like I said, they knew he had it, which is why everybody went after him over that stupid one story. They tried to derail his presidency. They did derail his presidency.
Yes.
They did. All right. With that in mind, I got to get out of here. Look for New Jersey. I hear you on Connecticut. We'll get there soon. I don't think I missed anything. Keep an eye on the locals thing. We'll talk about Georgia more. I'm going to work on that later today. I'm going to see if it's possible if we could do some stratifying right now. Play around and see some stuff. But, I don't know. We'll see. All right. So Laura's over there screaming something. I don't know what that was. All right. Don't forget to like the video. If you do, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to People's Pundit on YouTube. Hit the notification. It's now People's Pundit on YouTube. It is still called People's Pundit Daily, but the URL is People's Pundit. All right. And hit the notification bell after you subscribe. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. Follow me on Getter at People's Pundit, on Twitter at People's_Pundit. And as always, the best way to follow along with what we're doing is to join and support us on Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. Special thanks to our guest today, David Galluch, running for Congress in Pennsylvania, 5th Congressional District in Pennsylvania. We'll have him back soon. That was great. Happy he was here. And we'll always be bringing you more to come as well. We're going to visit with Matt tomorrow. Probably do a taped interview. Maybe I'll just throw it up for you guys on Locals to talk about what happened with the J6 rally and how the FBI tried to absolutely, again, frame demonstrators. Again. And if I didn't catch COVID, I would have been there, by the way. All right. That's it. With that, keep an eye on Locals, folks. As always, thank you for watching. We love you. We'll see you soon. All the best. All the best. Deuces.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
No, we don't.
Yes, you do.
Oh, yeah.
I know what
The
I'm
mic
talking
works
about.
again, guys. For some reason, when we do the guests, this mic goes off. And then when we do